Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at HarmonyOS.
Ah, yes. Huawei's big play in the operating system world.
Exactly. It's their multi-platform OS, and we've got some interesting sources here looking at the strategy, its whole journey and where it might be headed.
Mhm.
So our mission today is really to understand the core of HarmonyOS, what they're aiming for, and, what kind of ripple effect it could have on the tech world.
It's key to remember the context, isn't it? It really came about because of those U.S. restrictions.
Hmm.
Huawei suddenly found itself without access to things like Google mobile services.
Right, a huge challenge, and that necessity really shaped HarmonyOS.
It absolutely did.
And it's important to stress it's not just like a replacement. The sources emphasize its design philosophy is quite different. Think distributed connectivity from the get-go.
Yeah, unlike Android or iOS, which were primarily phone-centric initially, HarmonyOS was conceived with this idea of multiple devices working together.
Plus that focus on energy efficiency and beefed up security.
That distributed idea is probably the core differentiator.
Yeah.
Our sources talk a lot about resource sharing between devices.
So like your phone borrowing power from your tablet, that kind of thing.
Potentially, yeah, or
Yeah.
your watch and speaker coordinating. It's about making the devices act less like individuals and more like a single coherent system.
And the scope is massive, isn't it? It's not just phones.
Oh, definitely not. We're talking wearables, smart TVs, home appliances, cars.
Even industrial systems, that flexibility being able to run on pretty much anything with a chip.
It shows the scale of their ambition, doesn't it? It's fundamental to Huawei's strategy.
Which is?
Well, ultimately, building their own self-sufficient tech ecosystem, breaking free from that reliance on, Western systems. It's a huge strategic move.
Okay, so let's dig into the specific goals Huawei has for HarmonyOS. The sources seem pretty clear. First off, a unified OS, right? To kill that fragmentation issue.
Exactly. One OS for all their smart stuff. That makes life easier for users and developers. No more juggling different platforms within their own product line.
And that links back to the distributed tech, offering that seamless, connected feel.
Precisely. The technology enables the vision of everything just working together smoothly.
Then there's security and privacy. They talk about a certified microkernel, advanced protection. That sounds important.
It is, especially now. Everyone's concerned about data. A microkernel, in theory, is a more secure foundation. Less attack surface, potentially.
And given the geopolitical climate, controlling their own security makes sense for them.
Undeniably. And linked to that is, of course, reducing the dependence on Android and Google, which means building up Huawei mobile services, HMS.
That's the ecosystem part, right? Their own app store, their own core apps.
Yeah, a massive task. Building an alternative to the Google Play Store and all those associated services from, well, almost scratch. Its success is absolutely tied to HarmonyOS's fate.
You need the apps, don't you? Which brings us to developers.
The crucial keys. They need developers building native apps. Apps specifically for HarmonyOS optimized for it. That's a top priority.
How do you do that? Incentives.
Incentives, tools, support, and critically, showing developers there's a large enough user base to make it worth their while. It's a classic chicken and egg problem.
Okay, let's shift to the timeline. The sources lay out phases. Short term, say 2020 to 2023.
That was about getting it out there. HarmonyOS 2.0, then 3.0, primarily hitting smartphones and IoT devices.
And migrating users from their older Android-based system, EMUI.
Right. Plus developing things like the ARK compiler.
What was that for?
Improving app performance, making things run smoother on the new OS, maybe helping bridge the gap for some apps initially.
Got it. So, phase 1, launch and stabilize. Then the medium term, 2024, 2026. This seems like a big step.
It really is. This is where HarmonyOS NXT comes in.
And the key thing about NXT is no more Android apps.
Correct. It drops compatibility with Android APKs entirely. That's Huawei drawing a line in the sand. Full commitment to native HarmonyOS apps.
Wow, that's bold.
It's very bold. High risk, potentially high reward.
Mm.
It forces the issue on native development but risks alienating users if the native app ecosystem isn't ready.
And alongside this big technical shift, there's also pushing internationally.
Yeah, targeting markets where they still have a presence. Asia, Africa, Latin America seem to be priorities.
And partnerships, cars, appliances.
Definitely. Getting HarmonyOS integrated into more types of devices is key to that unified OS vision. Cars and smart homes are huge potential growth areas.
Okay, fast forward. Long-term goals, 2027 onwards.
The ambition here is sky high. Become the third major global OS, compete head-to-head with Android and iOS.
That's a mountain to climb.
A huge one. Plus, dominating in IoT and smart cities, building a developer ecosystem on par with Apple's or Google's. It's certainly not lacking ambition.
Let's rewind slightly to the origins again. So 2019, 2020, it starts life more as an IoT thing.
Initially, yes.
Yeah.
An alternative to Android, but maybe not for phones at first. But Huawei was always clear. They said it was independent, built on their own microkernel.
Not just an Android fork or clone.
Exactly. That microkernel point was and is central to their narrative about it being fundamentally different, more flexible, more secure. Establishing that separate identity was key.
Then came the consolidation, 2021, 2023. HarmonyOS 2.0 on phones like the P50, Make 40.
Right, and reaching that big number, over 700 million active devices.
So you have to remember that includes a lot of IoT stuff, not just phones.
True, but still a significant footprint.
Yeah.
And during this time, they were making improvements, better multitasking, gaming, trying to make the battery last longer, user experience stuff.
Which is vital if you want people to actually use it on their main device, their phone.
Absolutely.
And that leads us to now, 2024 onwards. The HarmonyOS Next T era, total independence, dropping Android app support.
The big leap. And as we said, huge investments in trying to lure developers to build native apps. They need to close that app gap.
The success of that, getting developers on board, seems like the critical factor.
It probably is, especially for the smartphone side of things. Without the apps people rely on, it's an incredibly hard sell.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. The sources paint a picture of HarmonyOS as, well, hugely ambitious, trying to break that Android OS duopoly.
Which is just massive. The network effects, the developer loyalty.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult to disrupt that.
But the potential upside they keep highlighting is that distributed architecture, especially for the future, for IoT, for hyperconnectivity.
Right. If everything is going to be connected, an OS designed for that, from the ground up, could have a real edge if they execute it well.
If they can deliver that seamless experience better than the competition.
Then maybe they carve out a unique space.
But it's a big but. The sources always circle back to the developers. You need the apps. Without a rich ecosystem.
It's tough. Like you said, a great console with no games isn't much use. The user experience, driven largely by apps, is king.
So if HarmonyOS offers something genuinely compelling, unique, and has a good selection of apps,
then it has a fighting chance. But if the app story isn't strong enough, all the technical brilliance might not matter to the average user.
Right. So summing up this deep dive, HarmonyOS, strategically vital for Huawei. Technically distinct, especially that distributed nature. Big long-term goals.
Yeah, that unified cross-device experience and the move to full independence from Android with NetXT are the key takeaways.
It's just the sheer scale of what they're attempting, building an OS and an ecosystem to challenge the giants.
It takes massive resources, incredible persistence, and probably a bit of luck too.
Which leads us back to that core question from the sources. Will it be the OS of the future? It's still very much an open question.
It seems like success hinges on breaking out internationally, beyond China.
And delivering a user experience, including apps that genuinely attracts people away from the familiar.
It really does feel like a major innovative gamble, not just tweaking an existing model, but trying something fundamentally different.
Yeah, especially with HarmonyOS and XT really forcing that independent path. We're about to see if that bet pays off.
It will certainly be fascinating to watch how it unfolds.
So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. We see this trend, right? Everything getting connected, more devices talking to each other, and maybe a need for more tech diversity. So thinking about all that, what factors do you think will ultimately decide if a new OS like HarmonyOS can actually succeed on the world stage? It's complex. We've just scratched the surface here. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.